I'm sitting down with Martin here to talk about a game called Twofold Inc. And it's a puzzle game that I played myself, and I love doing interviews on puzzle games because it gets so abstract. You can't avoid being abstract when talking about a puzzle game. But if you will, on an abstract level, what game is Twofold Inc.?
So I set out to make... I was playing another puzzle game, and I was a little bit annoyed. Like, it wasn't... Like, if I made this puzzle game, it wouldn't be like this. So it's like, because I'm a game developer, I'm like, I'm going to make my own puzzle game that's better. So it started just like on a lark one day and making a puzzle game, just like a stupid match 3 game, because I wanted to make something that felt good. And I was like, okay, this is kind of nice, but like there's a million match 3 games. So then it moved on to more like, what's everyone else doing and what happens if you do the opposite. So it's kind of a game born from that, like what happens if you don't do what everyone else is doing. But it turns out most things everyone else is doing, there's a good reason they're doing it that way. So it gets really tricky to make something that's good and different, because you're both fighting like the common knowledge. Like there's a reason almost all puzzle games have gravity that makes things fall down, because it's like you can see what's coming up and you can see. So my game doesn't have that, and that opens up like this entire new set of problems, but also some interesting like things you can do with it. And you also have to sort of fight people's expectations, because they know how puzzle games work in general, and this is. I mean, it's clearly a puzzle game, but it's a little bit different. So,
I think it's interesting because the way you put it, it does sort of force you to think of solving a puzzle in sort of multiple dimensions, if you will, and that is a little bit tricky. I play a lot of puzzle games basically to relax. I tend to play match 3 puzzlers to relax, just cleanse my mind, if you will. But this one sort of forced me into a different mindset than what I'm usually in when I play puzzle games. Yeah, and
that's... I'd like to say it's intentional, and it's just something I happened upon, like the way it works. So the way it works is you have a board, and there's a bunch of tiles on the board, and if they are the same color and like adjacent, you have to remove them, you need to drag through all the tiles exactly once. So if there's like a T shape, you can't do it because you cut yourself off, so there's no way to get the last piece. And that makes you, that sort of forces you to think in a different way. Because once you've played it for a little bit, and I mean I have for like a year as I've been working on it, you get like the eye for it. So you can just instantly see what you need to do. But it's like, it's an acquired skill, and it's really fun to acquire that skill because you can feel yourself getting better.
It's funny because when you start playing it, you're sort of like, oh, this is how it works. But when you're sort of starting to get that sort of thing where you manipulate the lines and to sort of to make it, to bend it to your will, if you want, if you will, it gets much more complicated and interesting as well.
Yeah, and it's like it's fun. It's fun, and kind of, when you're like watching an older relative use the computer and they're doing it wrong, and you're like, oh, I get that same feeling watching someone play this, because like I have done it so much, I know exactly what you need to do. I guess that's like a game developer thing in general, but there's definitely like once you get the eye for it, you can see what you need to do in a different way, and it's again like it feels really good once you like figure that stuff out. And as we were talking about before, like it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube in a way, because the playfield wraps around. So something at the edge is actually right next to something that's on the other edge. And once you figure that out, you're like, oh my God, I'm so clever. I can. So that hopefully that makes for like a nice arc that you can feel like you're getting better.
I think one of the problems with Rubik's Cube as a puzzle, because it's not a great game design, really. Rubik's Cube is kind of the worst game design ever, because you have to sort of try your way to, and there's only one right path. But this is a little bit more open-ended in that sense that you can sort of, it doesn't feel like it's pushing you towards this one way of doing it. You can sort of mess around with it. Of course, there's one correct solution. Maybe there's a few in different cases, but it sort of allows the player to sort of think for themselves and figure it out at their own pace, and it's not as digital as a Rubik's Cube, if you will.
And one of the things with the game is like it's all procedural, like all the the board, because it's like it's not quite random. I guess like you can say it's random, but it's more involved than that. Like there's weighting involved to make sure that it's like fair. There's no guarantee that you can actually complete everything all the time, but most of the time it's fine. And if it's not, you'll lose a life, and then you can move on. So it's very different from a puzzle in that sense, because there is no one solution. Like I don't know what's going to happen. I have some sort of idea. Like it's going to be okay. It might not be super good all the time, but it's going to be okay all the time and really good sometimes. And that's kind of like there's this like the wrangling of the randomness to get it to like behave in a nice way. And you can also you also run the risk of wrangling it too much. You get some games that feel like, oh, you're about to die and then it's fine, and you're about to die and then it's fine. And you can really feel the game sort of bending to accommodate you. Hopefully this game, like you won't, it does a little bit of that, but you won't notice it, and it's going to feel good.
That is interesting from a game design point of view, because usually puzzle games, you sort of want to avoid that fail state, that sort of where you cannot succeed. But you that's sort of part of the game here.
Yeah, some people complain about, they feel like the game is too random, but I like to think of it like a lot of people play poker, and that's also a very random game, and it turns into this, like it's your responsibility to deal with the randomness, and you know what might come up, and you know kind of, you sort of know what to expect, and you need to be ready for the things that could happen, and that's a part of the game. Like you don't know what's going to happen, but you have some idea of what might happen, and you can deal with that, and you can absolutely become good at this game. And it's part just seeing the shapes and the patterns, and part being ready for like the next thing that's going to hit you.
So you've released on App Store. What's the reception been like? How's it going?
It's been really good. Like super. It's a very complicated day of complicated feelings. Launch day, because you're like relieved that it's over, and it's also kind of starting because it's the first day and people like the game, and some people don't like the game. It's just like everything is happening at once. And my wife is like reading reviews and reading them to me. I'm like, stop! Can just leave me alone for a little bit. I need to have some time for myself because it's a little bit too much. But people have been super excited about it. I guess that's the best word. They've been comparing it to Threes, which is an honor, really, because that game is really good, and I really like that. And a lot of people have been playing it. Like I have some statistics in it, so I can see how many rounds people play. It's been out for like almost 3 weeks now, and there's like 1 million games played already, which is insane. So it's terrifying and super exciting all at once.
I think that if you were talking to some marketing people, they would say that charging upfront money like you do for this game on App Store is madness, insanity. It will never work. I'm sure you've heard that from different people. But what's your experience been like to actually charge a cover fee and not have any of the other stuff, other monetization models?
So like I don't feel super comfortable with free-to-play stuff for 2 reasons, really. One is I don't know how to do it. Like it's not something I've ever done. Which is like sort of disqualifies me from having too many opinions about it, and it's also like you have this weird conflict between making your payers play or like convincing them to pay, and you can do that in a number of ways, but like the worst way is making the game so annoying that they finally budge and play and pay, or just leave forever and never come back. I have sort of the like maximizing revenue is not a priority of mine. Like I'd love for the game to make enough money that I can keep doing this, but because I'm one person, I don't need to worry as much about that. And even if I could have done like, if I could have reached 10 times more people and made 10%, like same amount of money, but more people, maybe that would have been worth it. But like free to play is this like, you have to embrace it sort of and just make it a part of the entire game. And for me, having to charge money for the game is like this unfortunate consequence of doing this. Like, I just want to make the game and have people play it. And if I charge money for it, I can make more games. But like making the money is not what it's about. Like I have these games in my head and they want to come out, and that's a way I can do that. And the less I have to think about the money side of it, the better. And just by separating that out, makes me happy. It makes it easier for me as well.
I know for one that I'm kind of torn between it, because when I'm playing a free-to-play game, I'm always playing against the house. I feel I'm always trying to get as much game out of it without paying. And when I buy a game, it's more like, okay, I can enjoy this. I'm not just playing the house, if you know what I mean.
I think there's some kind of like gamer thing where you're like, I'm not going to pay because, and there's no good reason. Like, just rather waste 2 hours than just pay that $1. And it's like the rule set you make for yourself makes the game worse, where you should have just paid to begin with. So it's complicated. People are really complicated, so I don't know. I guess it's not out of the question that there might be a free-to-play version of this game one day, but not yet.
Good to hear that you're successful charging money for a game on App Store. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.